Mary Davis disappeared in 1987 while working at a Lexington hardware store.
Police found her body but could not figure out who killed her until now, thanks to new technology.
On May 30th, 1987, a 29-year-old mother of two, Mary Mathis Davis, disappeared without a trace in the city of Lexington, leaving her family and friends devastated. Her body was found the next day behind a local supermarket, and this discovery sent a shockwave through the community. Despite the tireless efforts of the police department, the case went unsolved for over 3 decades until there was finally a breakthrough in 2023. But was it enough to bring justice to Mary and closure to her family, or was it too late? Hi friends, and welcome back to Mysterious Hook. Today we are looking at a 36-year-old case that was finally solved in 2023. But first, if you have the time, please subscribe to the channel. So without any further ado, let's dive right into this mystery. Today's case will take us to Lexington, North Carolina. The city boasts of a rich and diverse cultural heritage, and one of its main attractions is its world-renowned barbecue, earning it the title Barbecue Capital of the World. Apart from its delicious cuisine, Lexington has a charming downtown filled with unique shops and restaurants, showcasing the city's friendly and welcoming spirit. The city's historic Uptown Lexington district is a popular area, and it features beautifully restored buildings that date back to the early 19th century. Mary Mathis Davis was born on February 12, 1958 in Lexington. Although her early years remain shrouded in mystery, what is known is that she had a sister named Lisa Hinkle whom she shared her childhood with. From playing games to exploring the outdoors, growing up together, the two sisters were a dynamic duo that nothing could come between. Lisa describes her sister as a beautiful, kind-hearted person who never failed to light up a room with her infectious smile. She also had a way of making everyone feel at ease. At some point, Mary met a man by the name of Richard Davis. As they got to know each other, a spark ignited between them, and before they knew it, they were swept up in a whirlwind romance. Their love grew stronger by the day, and Richard knew that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with Mary. And so one day, with a heart full of hope, he asked her to be his wife. Mary was overwhelmed with joy, and without hesitation, she said yes. After the proposal, the two lovebirds began to eagerly plan their life together as a couple. They spent hours on end talking about their future, discussing their dreams and hopes for the life they were about to embark on. The wedding day soon arrived, and the couple exchanged their vows in a romantic and intimate ceremony. After the wedding celebrations, Mary and Richard found themselves starting a new chapter of their lives and looked forward in anticipation to the journey ahead. The years flew by, and before long, Mary and Richard were parents to two beautiful children. Their first child was a boy, while the second was a girl named Tracy, who was born in 1986. The joy of parenthood was evident in the couple's home, as the sounds of laughter and the pitter-patter of little feet filled the air. Mary's heart overflowed with love, and she relished every moment spent with her children. To provide for her growing family, she took a job at Lanier's Ace Hardware, a store in Lexington. It wasn't the most glamorous work, but Mary didn't mind. She was grateful for the opportunity to earn a steady income. Though the money Mary earned wasn't much, it was enough to help cover the bills and put food on the table. Despite the challenges that came with juggling the responsibilities of motherhood and working a job, Mary remained steadfast in her determination to make the best life possible for her family. As the days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months, life continued at a good pace. Mary's family was thriving, and she felt a sense of contentment in her heart. But just when any of them least expected it, tragedy was waiting just around the corner, ready to strike. On the morning of May 30th, 1987, Mary left her home for work as usual. That Saturday felt like every other day, but little did she know that it would be her last on Earth. As Mary arrived at work, she greeted her colleagues with a smile and began to go about her day. She jumped into her tasks with enthusiasm. However, as the hours ticked by, she began to feel increasingly restless and hungry. By noon, her stomach was growling, and she found herself counting down the minutes to her lunch break. Eventually, the moment arrived, and she was relieved that she had the chance to finally escape the confines of her workplace. Her heart also raced with anticipation as she imagined settling down to a delicious meal. She reached into her bag to make sure that she had enough money to buy herself lunch, and after confirming this, she made her way out of her store and headed for a nearby restaurant. This would be the last time anyone would see Mary alive. She never returned to work. Once the time for her lunch break was done, her absence became more noticeable with each passing second. Her colleagues couldn't help but wonder what was keeping her. As the minutes turned into what felt like hours, their confusion turned to worry. What could be taking her so long? Was she okay? A million questions raced through their mind as they tried to make sense of Mary's prolonged absence. With no sign of her return, they knew that they had to find her, and fast. Without hesitation, one of them volunteered to search for her at the restaurant she had gone to for lunch. With heart racing, the co-worker rushed to the restaurant, but Mary was nowhere to be found. The restaurant staff there were of no help either, and the situation was becoming increasingly dire. The co-worker returned to the hardware store and reported that there was no sign of her. With this, fear began to grip the workers at the hardware store, and they knew they had to take more serious action. Without wasting another moment, they picked up the phone and dialed the emergency line. They told the operator everything they knew, and within minutes, the police were on their way. They also called Mary's parents and her husband to let the family know what was happening. It was a difficult call to make, but they knew that it was the right thing to do. Police immediately began searching for Mary that very day, but at first the search yielded nothing. There was simply no trace of her. As the news of Mary's disappearance spread, the community became gripped with fear and uncertainty. Mary's family, on the other hand, were left to grapple with the agony of not knowing where she was or what had happened to her. However, they prayed and hoped that their beloved Mary would be found safe and sound. Richard could hardly sleep a wink that night. He tossed and turned in bed as his thoughts kept him awake. He knew deep down that something was terribly wrong. Mary's disappearance did not make sense to him, and he knew that it was not just a simple case of getting lost in the city. His thoughts drifted to their children and how he would face them the next day. They had been asking about their mother, innocently unaware of the danger she might be in. Richard couldn't bear the thought of telling them that she might never be coming home again, but he knew that he had to be strong for them. As the sun rose the following day, the search for Mary continued, but all the efforts seemed to be in vain. The police and Mary's family were on edge, desperate to find any leads on her sudden disappearance. As the day went on, the police suddenly received an emergency call that a dead body had been discovered behind the building of a local supermarket known as Winn-Dixie. A small team of police officers immediately raced to the scene. As they arrived, they saw a small crowd gathering around the area where the body had been discovered, and the officers quickly moved in to secure the area. They could see that the body had been there for some time. It was already beginning to give off a faint smell of decomposition. Upon closer inspection, they were able to identify the body as that of the woman they had been searching for. Shock and disbelief were evident on the officers' faces, but they knew that they had work to do. The cause of death was not immediately apparent, so the police began to search the surrounding area for any clues. They also questioned the employees at the supermarket, but none of them seemed to know anything. Following this, the body was then taken away for an autopsy. That same day, a uniformed police officer arrived at the home of Mary's parents. He asked for Mary's father, who immediately stepped outside to speak to him. The air was thick with tension as the officer delivered the heartbreaking news. He explained what little they knew about what had happened to Mary and offered his condolences. The news was devastating, and Mary's father was left shattered and grief-stricken. The rest of the family was also shocked and saddened. A few days after Mary's body was found, the results of the autopsy were out, and they revealed that she had been strangled to death. In addition, it was also discovered that she had also been sexually assaulted. With this, her death was ruled a homicide. And so, as Mary's family struggled to come to terms with her loss and were left to pick up the pieces, the authorities began an investigation into her death. There were a lot of unanswered questions, and they were determined to get to the root of it all. Detectives had with them pieces of evidence in the form of DNA that had been collected from the crime scene. However, due to the lack of technology at the time, there was little that could be done with this. Despite this, detectives worked tirelessly day and night, running down every lead and tip that came their way. They even asked for help from the public, hoping that someone would come forward with information that would crack the case wide open, but to no avail. The killer seemed to have vanished into thin air, leaving the detectives feeling defeated. The days dragged on, turning into weeks and months, but the killer remained elusive. With each passing day, the detectives felt their grip on the case slipping away. Mary's family, however, never gave up hope and believed that one day justice would be served. They tried their best to move on with their lives, but the wounds of grief remained fresh in their hearts. In 2011, almost 25 years after Mary's murder, her sister Lisa made a bold move by speaking out about the tragedy that had befallen her family. She opened up to the media about the heartbreak they had endured, sharing how difficult life had been without her beloved sister by her side. As Lisa reminisced on their happy memories together, she also shared that the family had never given up hope that one day they would get the closure they so desperately sought. Yet despite the heartache and loss, she revealed that the family had no interest in seeking revenge, and that forgiveness was something she was willing to extend to whoever had taken Mary's life. In 2022, a new team of detectives that were assigned to the murder case decided to review the evidence available. They were well aware of the advances in DNA technology and knew that they had a better chance of solving the case now as compared to when it happened back in 1987. Following this, the detectives then submitted some physical evidence to the North Carolina State Crime Lab. Going by the positive result that was obtained from the analysis of the evidence, the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation was contacted to take a look at the case. Things began to move at a fast pace from there. The State Bureau of Investigation reached out to Othram, a private laboratory in Texas that specializes in forensic genealogy. DNA evidence from the case was then sent to Othram, and their scientists were able to develop a genealogical profile for an unknown male suspect. After months of hard work, the unknown male suspect was finally identified. It was a man by the name of Russell Grant Wood. The discovery was a relief for detectives, and they knew without a doubt that the case was finally close to being solved. However, there was a problem. After doing a check on Russell's background, they found out that he had died back in 2013 at the age of 58, so there was no way to bring him to justice. According to what Lexington Police Chief Robbie Rummage later revealed during a press conference, Russell had been previously identified as a suspect in the case, but due to lack of sufficient evidence at the time, detectives had no choice but to direct their focus away from him. That was not all. It was also discovered that both Russell and Mary had known each other, but it is not clear what kind of relationship had existed between them. If Russell had been alive, the state would have proceeded with indictments and charged him with first-degree murder, first-degree kidnapping, and first-degree rape. On February 3, 2023, Mary's surviving family were notified of the breakthrough in the case, and they expressed their gratitude to the detectives for their dedication to the case. We prayed that one day we would find the person who violently murdered our beloved Mary. We now have some answers. Although that won't bring Mary back, it does give us a sense of closure, Lori Martin, Mary's niece, had said. Mary's family later held a celebration in honor of her memory at the Forest Hill Memorial Park on February 12, 2023. She would have turned 65 on that day if she had still been alive. Mary was a light in this world, and we were blessed to have her as long as we did. She was a loving mother, sister, wife, aunt, and friend. We know she is resting easily in the arms of our Lord and Savior, Lori said. Although the mystery surrounding Mary's death has been unraveled and her killer has been identified, there are still a lot of questions that we will never know the answers to. What kind of relationship do you think existed between Mary and Russell? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video.